Hi there, beautiful soul. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today's video, I'd like to offer you a little bit of an introduction to meditation, or at least how I use it, and my own perspective on it. So this video is for you if you're completely new to meditation, if you're a beginner, or if you simply like to hear about my perspective and my perception on it, because it's different for everybody, and perhaps it can inspire you to meditate a little bit more often. So why meditate in the first place? For me, meditation is really about tuning down the noise and tuning in to my own inner space, my own inner wisdom. And so that a lot of the times is about silencing the noise around me, and also silencing what can happen a lot in the mind. So if this is a concept that's new for you, then let me just briefly explain the fact that our mind and our ego is often chattering and making up some sort of narrative or story. And while the mind is very useful in a lot of ways, it's also interesting to observe the kind of story that it's telling us, because in my own experience, the story that is being told is not necessarily one that's based in reality and one that necessarily serves me, unless I take the time to question it and push back on what's being actually said. And so that's a whole other subject. But essentially, when we take the time to meditate, we take the opportunity to observe ourselves and get to know the mind, what beliefs lie behind it, and then learn to kind of quiet it down, because essentially we realize that, wait a minute, this voice is not necessarily my deep truth, the truth that comes from my heart and my own being. And so meditation, as I said, is about quieting that voice and that noise to be able to access that inner truth and that inner wisdom that's always available to all of us if we just take the time to connect to it. And so meditation is this practice of giving ourselves the space to connect within. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every time we hear clearly or we see things clearly, but just the fact that we practice and we offer ourselves this space makes it easier to connect within and hear our own intuition, hear our own wisdom. And so as we spend time with ourselves in that way, we get to know ourselves very intimately. And ultimately, I believe that in this world, one of the humble ways that we can contribute is through becoming more self-aware, is becoming more responsible for the way that we behave and move in the world, because our interactions with the world make a difference and affect those around us. And so if we move from a place that is deeply connected and rooted to the truth of who we are, then we get to spread that essence. We get to emanate and move from that place and bring more love, or whatever it is that is important for us to bring in and embody in our day, rather than moving around from a place of unawareness and flailing about and just harming others through our words, through our actions. And so some of the ways that we meditate, there are many out there, and of course I invite you to explore and check out all of the different kinds of meditations there are out there, because there are a lot. But for me, what I personally enjoy and what works a lot is just making everything a moving meditation. So this is something that might feel a bit challenging at first, because the mind does like to speak a lot. It oftentimes has a lot to say. And so just connecting to the activity that we're engaged in and giving it the full weight of what it actually is. And so something as simple as washing your dishes can be a meditative practice if you focus your whole attention on maybe the sensations in your hand, or what the dish looks like, or how it feels like, the sponge in your hand, or the bubbles that are there. What is that? How do they shimmer, and how do they move? How is the water moving? There are so many ways that we can engage in the activity that we're enrolling in by just putting all of our focus on it. And that is one of the ways that we can connect deeply to the experience that we're having, and making that a much more enjoyable experience because we're fully present, we're fully embodied. Another way that personally helps me to meditate and just tune down the noise is through mantra meditation. So that's some of what I offer here on this channel, and part of the process is through connecting to my own voice and chanting. You'll notice with time, if you decide to include your voice, that it is just an incredible tool to connect to your own present moment. And so through mantras, and often through Sanskrit mantras, I find it particularly helpful because there is no identification with the words that are being sung or chanted, and that helps us to just focus on the sound that's actually emanating from the other person or from ourselves, and connects us deeply into our breath. So you'll notice as well, perhaps, that as you're chanting, the fact of chanting these very long syllables inspires deeper breath, and that in itself is a meditative practice. And so this chanting practice is incredibly powerful because once we're fully immersed into it through our voice, through the sound, the noise just kind of falls away. It's without any effort at all that it happens, and there is this deep sense of inner stillness and silence that begins to get cultivated, and we get to sit in deeper and deeper with that every time we decide to sit down. Another way that I like to connect is just simply connecting through my breath. So I mentioned it with the chanting, but sitting down mindfully and connecting to the breath, or in fact, connecting to breath at any moment really is a powerful anchor into the present moment, because rather than just getting sucked up on top here into the mind and into our thoughts, when we move our focus down into our belly, for instance, and into the rising and the fall of the breath, is just a great way to connect into the body and create space for just something else. Just creating space to be is, in my opinion, super healing, because we don't need to be doing all the time. We can allow ourselves to just be, and sometimes we need to remind ourselves that, and that reminder comes through practicing. Another way that I personally enjoy meditating is through sound meditation, and so being exposed to therapeutic instruments and just allowing those sounds to wash over me is really powerful, and you'll find some references here as well to be able to experience that. So there you have it. That's my take on meditation. People meditate for all kinds of different reasons. For me, it's super important in my own practice as a means of self-awareness, as a means of just relaxing my own nervous system, dialing it down and moving from a place of panic into just slowing down and coming back to who I am and rooting within, grounding down into my own being. And also just about making space to kind of differentiate and distinguish what's actually mine from what's not mine. And so it's in this practice that we get to have that clarity and build upon that self-awareness and ultimately that self-responsibility. So I believe that as we move in the world with more awareness, we get to experience and move from a place of love and compassion and understanding ultimately. When we are moving around in unawareness, that's when we can sometimes create harm towards others through our own words, our own actions. And so this is why I believe one of the best ways that we can contribute to the well-being of all is through really taking care of ourselves and creating that practice to get to know ourselves in such a deep way that we know and we can cultivate those tools to come back to a state of harmony, a state of well-being, of inner peace and love. And from there, we get to offer and operate from our best selves. So I hope that this video inspires you or perhaps teaches you something new or different. I'd love to know more in the comments how this lands with you and if this inspires anything on your side. It's always a pleasure to read from you. And so if you believe that this could be helpful for someone, feel free to share, as it's always great to spread the love. And otherwise, if you'd like to contribute to this channel and keep it going, feel free to subscribe as well. So I wish you the most beautiful day. May you move with ease. May you move from a place of inner knowing and with love. Namaste.